Star Wars Episode 1 Racer was released on Nintendo 64 on North America on May 18, 1999. Today we're celebrating the 25th anniversary of Star Wars Episode 1 Racer, one of my favorite Star Wars video games in history, as marked as the first Star Wars racing game. On the day before Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace was released in theaters on May 19, 1999. And there's Anakin Skywalker. He was a 9-year-old human boy from the human slave underdog on Tatooine, and he was a slave to Watto. He raced several worlds for Watto before the Boon to Eve race, but he never placed any of them or even finished any races because he was sabotaged by Sebulba, which causing him to crash multiple times. And later, in the Boon to Eve race, he defeated Sebulba and win the Boon to Eve Classic, and he was finally freedom to leave Tatooine and became a Jedi Knight in the Jedi Order. And there's Team Toe Pagalites. He was a Vecnoid from the planet Newest Mandal. He was the outcast Vecnoid after he got kicked out from his homeworld after he rejected from a beautiful Vecnoid princess. And he became a wanderer until he found pod racing, and he was a drunker and alcoholic, that is. He raced fairly well in the Boon to Eve Classic, but he crashed on the second lap due to the interference by Tusken Raiders, sending him crash wildly out of control. And there's Sebulba. He was a male Doug from the planet Malastare, and he was the most famous and fan-favorite racer in the entire of the pod racing circuit. He was more like as a dirty racing as a cheater. He was cruel, greedy, rude, and arrogant, who was always cheating many races all the time. And he also installed illegal flamethrowers on his pod to eliminate other racers. And in the Boon to Eve race, he eliminated several racers on the track, which means Mahonic, Clegg Holdfast, and Mars Guo, until he was crashed on the third and final lap before the moments at the end of the race from the hands of Anakin Skywalker, which, after he finally came to rest from the wreckage of his pod and cursed the day he met Anakin Skywalker. And there's Rats Terrell. He was the Alina pod racer from the planet Ely Minor. During the first lap of the Boon to Eve Classic race, he crashed on the first lap due to the fact his accelerator has been jammed and lost control and slammed into a hanging stalactite, and his pod exploded. His family and friends was devastated by his death and mourning and fell in hard times. And there's Aldar Beto. He was the Glibrin from the planet Plu-2. He was the assassin and bounty hunter, and he was Juan Sanchez's hitman, and he was hired, and he was entered the Boon to Eve Classic as a request by Juan Sandich, who ordered him to kill Sebulba and let Sandich win so he could be in history in the record books. But sadly, this did not end up happening, as Juan Sandich did not finish, and Anakin Skywalker won the race outright, and he eventually dropped the contract after Juan Sandich passed away and worked for his former target Sebulba as a bodyguard, and replacing Dud Bolt, and marked as a duo eliminating many races, a huge success in the pod racing circuit. And there's Mahonic, the Grand from the planet Hawk. He raced several worlds on Andor Prime, Malastare, and Ryloth. And in the first lap, this had to prove his undoing, as he crashed on the first lap in the Mushroom Mesa. It was collided by Sebulba. And after he survived the awful wreck, he continued to race and loses the race again to Sebulba, and hiring several bounties to hunt down one of Sebulba's relatives, dead or alive, hoping to gain revenge on the Dug indirectly. And there's Art Bumpy Roos. Here's a Nuck from the planet Sump. He tried to sabotage Anakin's pod as payback for made him nearly lost the race to Anakin, which made him a laughingstock 24/7. But he wants to make him a laughingstock as revenge. But this did not end up happening, as he accidentally sabotaged Ben Quaternaro's pod instead. In the third lap, he collided with Sebulba's in-race bodyguard Dud Bolt, and these two racers took each other out, and he was suffering minor and severe injuries. And there's Juan Sandich, a Deflick from the planet Orbridaba. He wanted to submit a name in history by winning the Boonta Eve and hire the pod racer assassin Aldar Beetle to kill Sebulba in the Boonta Eve race, but he failed and he crashed on a sandcrawler in the third and final lap after veering off course. And there's Mars Grow. He was a Fooey from the planet Fu. He crashed on the second lap due to the cheating actions by Sebulba, threw his scrap metal into his racing engines, sending him crash wildly out of control, sending Mars flying away in his cockpit. And there's Clegg Holdfast. He was a Nassarian from the planet New Plinto. According to the deleted scenes, his pod racer was flame jetted by Sebulba and sending him crash into Beggar's Canyon. After he survived the explosive crash, he used his connections and putting himself finish in 7th place, or just continuing on his pod racing quarterly work, that is. And there's Neva Key. He was the Examster pilot from the planet Sagoba. And he started according on the second lap, as he flew off course, managed to find a shortcut, and disappeared, flying away at the Hut Flats, and he was never seen again. And it is unknown if he perished in the crash or nearly quit the race. And there's Bose Roar. He was a Sneevel from the planet Sneeve. He won 2 previous Boonta Eve Classic races in his career at that time, but unfortunately he had a bad day because he finished 6th place. It was far overshadowed to Quaterneros, even though he didn't made it, due to the fact his pod was sabotaged by Ark Roos. And there's Odie Mandrill. He was a Urkid from the planet Tatooine, and he was the famous racer in the sport before Anakin Skywalker. He raced well in the Boonta Eve race on the first lap. At the end of the first lap and the beginning of the second lap, he took a pit stop, which unfortunately ended up taking him out of the race completely as one of his faulty pit droids sucked into his engine, disabling the pod and ruining the engine, which will accidentally forcing him to drop out of the competition. And there's Ben Quaterneros. He was a tune for the Outer Rim planet Hund, but unfortunately he was unable to start due to the power coupling malfunction and his engine failures, expanding the screen panel, sending his Ben Quaterneros' pod racing engine suddenly fly off in different directions, sending him leaving Quaterneros behind in his cockpit, and then terrifying soon other racers just overhead. Now there's Elon Mock. He was a Gluvrian from the planet Blue 4. His real name was Cam Nail. He wanted to eliminate Aldar Beetle, who had murdered his father, Borzer Nail. But he crashed in tons of crashes trying to track down his father's killer, and finally learned Beetle's name on Tatooine and changed his name to Elon Mock to avoid suspicion. He finished 5th place and failed to kill Aldar Beetle, and later he rather enjoyed pod racing, so he began a career in it. There's Gazgano. He was the Exexto from the planet Choikin, and he was a favorite racer on the track, and he finished 2nd place after he received the higher levels in popularity due to Sebulba's downfall. And he became famous on his prison rune Uvo 4, except he got drunk after turning himself into a very violent brawler. And there's Dud Bolt, the Volturine from the planet Voltur. He worked as a bodyguard for Sebulba in the pod racing circuit. He managed to eliminate many racers on the track, and he collided with Ark Bumpy Roos in the 3rd and final lap. And he did that job pretty well for this, and Sebulba paid him a hefty bonus. And he eventually loses his job and got fired and being replaced by Aldar Beetle, which enraged him. And later he continued racing till the start of the Clone Wars, as his pod can be seen during Attack of the Clones. And finally, there's E.B. Endicott. He was a Triffian from the planet Triffus, and he began as a delivery man before he became a pod racer, and have great Daredevil stunts as moved by deliveries. And after he became a pod racer pilot, he became famous on his wins on Malastare, and he managed to take out Sebulba and win the Boonta Eve race. But sadly, this did not go so well though, as E.B. Endicott finished 4th. But he's so great and comfort in the fact that Sebulba did not finish the race, or even placed, and this would consider him a huge win. So that's all the racers of the of the Phantom Menace. So let's talk about other racers that we don't get to see in the actual film. There's Toy Dampener, Slide Paramia, Fud Sang, Bullseye Noir, Bullseye Bozzy Baranta. Yeah, that's it. And that's all. I think that's all of the racers. And so there's the credits and any kinds of stuff. Posters. And last year I got the Star Wars Episode 1 Racer Nintendo Switch last year, after I got my own Nintendo Switch back in January. And in the last few weeks this month, I did get to see Star Wars Episode 1 The Phantom Menace for the 25th anniversary with my mom. And I really enjoyed that film. And it's a good thing I get to see it again on the big screen. And I really love those, Let me know in the comments, subscribe, and this is Minion Fan 1024 and Darth Vader Fan 1024 signing off. And may the Force be with you.